for meeting us today. There's food in the back in case anyone wants anything. I'm Fatima. Most of you already know me, and in case you don't, I'm the president of ILS. And the Mr. I is Mr. Martin Kim, the Dean for International Graduates at SMU. And he's going to be talking to us about the LLM degree, all the questions that you might have. I just recently came to my knowledge that you also work with the Bar Association. Yeah. So that's really cool in case any of you, I'm already telling them to ask you questions about it, even though you haven't said anything. But, well, yeah, thank you very much for meeting us, and I hope that you learned something today.
Great, awesome. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Muy feliz. Yo hablo un poquito español, pero es un poquito difícil. Pero pienso, es el idioma segunda de los Estados Unidos y Texas, so tengo que hablar un poquito también. Pero si yo quiero hablar mejor, tengo que practicar cuando tengo una oportunidad. But for this lecture, I will switch back to English. But I will tell you something, and this is very, very true. Having more than one language opens up so many doors. And having English the way that you have and your ability to communicate in this universal language changes everything. And I used to be a partner with the international law firm Jones Day, has offices in Mexico City and around the world. And I actually lived in the Middle East, in Kuwait, for 3 years. And while I was there, I learned a little bit of Arabic. And so after I learned Arabic and I came back to Texas, I thought, well, if I can speak Arabic, I should speak Spanish, or at least some Spanish. And then I kind of fell in love with language, because language is like the law that you're studying. Every language has its law, right? I mean, if it's in Spanish, you have to conjugate your verb, voy, las, va, vamos, you have to know how to do this. So I learned a little bit of Japanese. Don't ask me why. I like to listen to tapes, and it's actually not that, it's a very difficult language to speak professionally, but it's not difficult to speak and learn the law of the language, because it's very, very logical, as you would probably think for Japan. And I learned enough of it that I had to fly to Tokyo, and we have a lot of alumni from Japan. 2 of the former chief justices on this Japanese Supreme Court are alumni, and every year they send a judge to study with us as a scholar. And so I was flying through Tokyo, and I went and had dinner with the judge, and I went back to the airport, and I was looking for the American Airlines Admirals Club. And if you speak English in most of the world, the signs are in the native language and they're in English, so you can function. And I could. And I got almost to where I thought the Admirals Club was, and then I couldn't find it. And there was a small Japanese woman, and she was in a uniform. And I looked at her and I said, "Can you tell me where the Admirals Club is?" And she looked at me kind of a little bit with disgust, right? No English, no English. Well, because I could speak some Japanese, I don't know if you have studied a famous author named Kafka, who wrote a book about metamorphosis and change, right? So I changed into Japanese Martin. And I looked at her and I said, which is, do you speak Japanese? Which she did, because she was, right? Yes, yes. 少しいただきます。少しわかります。でもまだ上手じゃありません。Which is, I speak a little and I understand a little, but I'm not very skilled yet. No, 上手です。You're very skilled. 上手です。Admirals Club, どこですか? Where's the Admirals Club? And she was, everything changed. And she took me where I needed to go. Now, if it had gone much beyond that in the conversation, I would have failed miserably, like me trying to give my presentation to you in Spanish. But at the same time, it was really helpful to do that. Why am I telling you this? I'm going to go through this presentation in a minute, but I wanted to tell you something that I found is very, very, very important. And it's this. There is no experience as powerful or more life-changing than actually living in, particularly studying in, another culture, another language. Because what happens is you become an ambassador Think about it. People argue all the time about politics. They argue about religion. They argue about whether the Cowboys are their favorite team or, all of these things. We argue about them. But the one thing people can never argue about is your story. There's nothing to argue about. It's what you've experienced. So when we have students from all over the world come and study, they become the ambassadors. And they meet the American students and the other international students, and we learn about their country and their culture from them. And they learn about our country and our culture. And then when they go back to their own countries, they become ambassadors for SMU, they become ambassadors for the United States, ambassadors for Texas. And it's really powerful. I know my life changed when I moved to the Middle East. I was a small boy from East Texas. I'd not really traveled very much. I was a partner in a big international law firm, but my practice wasn't international at the time. And suddenly I find myself in another country, in another culture. And I realized something very unusual. I realized that about 99% of who you are is an accident of your birth. Who are your family? What country? What culture? What religion? What language? What socioeconomic status? What abilities do you have? All of these things, we don't make those choices. I mean, some people think that you're up there and you choose, okay, this time, but I think for most of us, it just kind of happens, right? One day we're born and that's who we are. And underneath that difference, though, what I realized is that people universally want the same things. They want a good life, they want family, they want a job or some career, or something that makes them feel fulfilled. What we have in common with each other around the world is much, much stronger than the surface differences that came about by where we were born in our cultures. So that's why it was about 17 years ago, I was a partner at Jones Day. I was teaching as an adjunct professor like many of your professors who practice. And I got the chance to be dean of students at the law school. Now, I graduated from the law school, and I love the school. And I thought, well, I'm 51 years old. I could stay there at Jones Day another 15 years. What else would I learn about myself? And so I went to be dean of students, and I did that for 10 years. And then 7 years ago, they asked me to be dean of graduate and international programs. And so basically, my job involves teaching. I teach property law, I teach business enterprise. Sometimes I teach urban planning law, I teach real estate law, but I also work with all of our international students. So I am the academic advisor, I teach, and I counsel, and I help. And pre-COVID, and hopefully now, I get to travel the world, meeting with alumni, and talking to them about what's going on in their lives, and helping recruit from their schools and things like that. And what an amazing experience for a little guy who grew up in a small town in East Texas. And one day I had a trip where I went from Rio to Sao Paulo, to Brasilia, to Buenos Aires, to Santiago, to Lima, and to Bogota, and I flew back to Dallas. And I had a conference and I gave a speech. I had to teach, and I got up the next day, and I went to Beijing. And everywhere I went, I saw people who were from my school, and were talking to me about what their lives and their experiences were like. So for me, it's a great gift. That's me without my beard. I grew the beard in this summer. Good news, bad news, who's to say? What I really want to do isn't so much talk to you about SMU. I mean, you guys have many options. I really want to talk to you about you. And when I was dean of students, I had orientation. The very first day, I would talk to all of the students. And I would always tell them this story, and I wanted to share it with you. It's about perspective. And it comes from a Chinese philosopher named Lao Tzu. And the story goes that there's an old man in China, and his wealth is his horse. And he rides the horse to the village, and he uses it for work, and one day the horse runs away. And all the villagers come to the old man, and they say, "Old man, such bad fortune, you've lost your horse." And the old man looks at the villagers and he says, "Good news, bad news, who's to say?" Well, then the horse comes back, and the horse has 5 wild horses with him. So suddenly the old man has 6 horses and he's wealthy. And all the villagers come, "Oh man, such good fortune. You lost your horse, but now you have 6 and you're wealthy." The old man said, "Good news, bad news, who's to say?" Well, then the old man's only son breaks his leg trying to train one of the wild horses. And all the villagers come to the old man and say, "Oh man, such bad fortune. Your son has broken his leg." The old man said, "Good news, bad news, who's to say?" Then the warlord in that region goes to war with a neighboring region, and he conscripts all the able-bodied young men. They go off to the war. Most of them are injured or killed. But he can't take the old man's son because he has the broken leg. And all the villagers come to the old man and they say, "Oh man, such good fortune, your honorable son was spared the war." And by now, you know what the old man said, right? What did he say?
Good news,
Bad news, things to say. So then I would tell him, "This is, your first day at SMU Dedman School of Law, and I'm going to be your dean of students. Good news, bad news, things to say." But the point of it is it gives us perspective. And the perspective is very, very important because we're entitled when things happen to ask why once, but it gives us some context. But then we have to stop. We have to ask the only questions that ever matter, which are, what am I going to do now about whatever the situation is? Because in action, we have power. The past doesn't change. People are who they are, and they do what they do, and the future is going to be. But you always can choose your actions and your attitude about what happens to you. So when I was dean of students, one time a student came into my office, and she sat down and she said, "Dean Camp, something really bad happened." I said, "What's that?" "Someone broke into my car, and they stole my laptop. And my computer was in it, and it had all of my notes, and exams are 3 weeks away." But then, before I got too upset, I remembered that old man in China. And I thought to myself, well, it could be worse, right? I mean, I wasn't in the car, I'm not injured, it's just property, it's 3 weeks away, it's not a week away. And I decided I'm more interested in what can I do about this. And I just came to you for advice. How would you prepare under these circumstances? You see the difference that just the little change in attitude can have. And so one of the things that I used to tell my American students also was, the good news is you're 250 of the best and the brightest and the smartest and the hardest working students in all of the United States. And the bad news is you're 250 of the best and the smartest and the brightest students in the United States. And 3 years from now, half of you won't be in the top half of your class. Oh my gosh, I've always been number one. 2/3 of you won't be in the top third of your class. But all of you will be lawyers. And how successful you're going to be will have very little to do with law school GPA, and very much to do with all the other things that are not measured on that. So, what happens next? My father was a very big influence on my life. He had a lot of wisdom. He was a crazy, funny man, but he had a lot of wisdom. And one of the things he told me is the most important person in your life is you. If you think about it, we have this golden rule, right? It's that love your neighbor as yourself. But you know what? It doesn't say love your neighbor more than yourself. It doesn't say love your neighbor instead of yourself. It says as yourself. So the first person you have to take care of in your life, and it's always going to be this way, is you. If you take care of yourself, then you're going to be able to take care of all the other things that are involved in your career. all the other things that are involved in your family and the other responsibilities. This moment right now, and this beautiful day that I understand every day in Monterey is like this, right? It's never cold, it's just like LA, it's always just perfect weather. No. Same with Dallas. I tell everybody that Texas is our weather is a result of the battle between Mexico and Canada. Texas is right in the middle. America is flat with two mountain ranges. Cold air comes down from Canada, sometimes Kansas, sometimes Oklahoma, sometimes North Texas, sometimes even San Antonio. Warm air comes up from Mexico. So in the wintertime, one day can be like this, and another day can be ice. Most of us are much happier when Mexico wins. We like the warm weather more than the cold weather. But the spring of your life is the time you invest in yourself. Because this is a moment where you have the most opportunity and the least responsibility for other people. Later in your life, when you marry or if you have other responsibilities or work or you take on the family business, a lot of things happen that make it harder to be a scholar, that make it harder to invest in yourself. So you're already winners by getting a law degree. You're already going to be having something that separates you from most students. But I believe that if you invest in getting an LLM in another country, in another language, it will be something that you will benefit from the rest of your life. You're gonna carry it with you on your resume like a well, it's who you are. It becomes intimate, and it makes you different. We have one alumni. He's from Tampico, and he did the LLM. Then he stayed and did the JD, which we allow our LLMs to transfer into the JD if they do well, and so you can finish an American law degree in 2 years instead of 3. And now he's the partner in Miami with Greenberg Traurig in charge of mergers and acquisitions for all of Latin America. And he also is their partner in charge of hiring international lawyers. His name's Antonio Pena. He's a wonderful guy. He's a good friend of mine. I taught a class for you here, not this fall, but the fall before on business enterprise. And he taught one of the classes and talked about mergers. We have another alumni, Maria Luisa Canovas, who's from Spain. And she did her LLM, and then she worked with me at Jones Day. And she's a partner with my old law firm, Jones Day in New York, also in charge of mergers and acquisitions for all of Latin America. Both of them are brilliant people, as is another woman from Brazil who is in charge of Apple in Brazil. And I could go on and on, but the point I'm making is one of the things, as brilliant as they are, that opened up those doors was the fact that they had, in addition to their law degree in their own country, an international LLM in an English language program, so that international law firms and international companies could be aware that they understood both cultures and could function professionally in both languages. Now, you think about the funnel effect, right? Things get smaller and smaller. You're already here as a law student. And then when you graduate, if you do an LLM, there's even smaller numbers of people that have all of those credentials. So that's why I say this is your spring. Invest in yourself. Take that opportunity. And you know what? You're going to have lots of jobs in your career. Most of us do. I never dreamed that I would be in academia when I graduated. I thought I was going to practice law forever, and that was my dream. And instead, now I'm Dean of International Programs. My older brother traded places with me, and he was in academia, and now he runs his own company working with people with Alzheimer's and things. So the point of that is that you just don't know. How much time do we have? Are we?
About a minute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. All right. I didn't realize how little.
I mean, people who have class.
No, I understand. What time is it now?
10:29.
Okay, all right. So one thing I want to tell you, and then those of you who can stay, speak. SMU has a special relationship with Facultad Libre de Derecho de Monterrey, We have a program that's a 3-1 program, and if you do the program, you get 1 year of credit towards your degree here for the LLM in Dallas, and it comes with a scholarship. So it allows you to finish an LLM and your degree here in exactly the same amount of time. We have 4 students in that program now currently studying, and they're doing amazing things. We have a program in Dallas that sort of sets it apart because there's more Fortune 500 companies in Dallas than any other place in the United States, and they do what's called corporate counsel externship. So you get 2 hours of academic credit studying what does a general counsel need, and you get 2 hours academic credit actually working in a general counsel's office. So one of the students, your alumni, is working for Coca-Cola Mexico, working there in Dallas and getting a chance to do that. So I would love for you to come to SMU, would love for you to experience an LLM. But the most important thing would be anywhere. Take a year of your life and invest it in yourself. If you want to take a law bar exam, LLMs will train you to do that. About half of the courses you take will be geared toward helping you pass a bar exam. You'll take a 2-hour class on the law of perspectives of American legal system, kind of a comparative law class. You'll take 3 hours of classes on legal writing. You'll take 2 hours on legal ethics, and then the rest of the time, what you'll be doing is taking up to 6 hours of classes that are tested on a bar exam. So I teach a course in business enterprise accounts. There's all the contracts and property and all the other courses that people take. So all of those courses, very easy for someone to do the LLM, take your 24 credits, and have the credits that you need to take the bar exam. And then if you get licensed in both US and Mexico, it opens up other doors that you wouldn't otherwise have. I serve on the board of directors of the US-Mexico Bar Association, and it's lawyers who practice across the border. And having an LLM in the United States allows you then to work for international law firms or to work for international companies. So it opens up all of those doors. I'm going to stop. I could go on forever, but let me see if anyone here has questions before people have to leave. Can I answer anyone's questions? Yes?
No, I think it's great. I don't have any questions.
Okay, well, when you apply, if you want to do the 3-1, then just work through your administration. Fernando will help you with that. If you're getting ready to graduate this year, you can still come under the normal LLM program. So that you just apply. When you apply, you give a personal statement, and this is for any LLM. The personal statement is going to talk about what I want to study. It's helpful when you do that to tailor it to your school that you're applying to. You're going to want to have a couple of references, and the references can be professors, but they don't have to be. But it's important they just be people that know you. Somebody that knows your parents and doesn't know you is not a good reference. And your mother isn't a good reference, even though she may love you very much. But somebody that you worked with or somebody you studied with, those are the references that you need. So your resume, your CV, tells us a lot about you. So your personal statement doesn't repeat what's in there. It's your chance to tell it. And everybody has a different reason for being a lawyer or wanting to go to school. Sometimes it's because someone in their family is a lawyer, or because nobody in their family is a lawyer. Sometimes they experience some tragedy they overcame. Sometimes they have something passionate. But mostly what the personal statement does is tell us about you. And then when you apply, we consider you. You don't have to separately apply for a scholarship. And then, yes?
Are there any ways to access other people's personal statements just to get an idea?
I suspect, like my students in my class, that if you Google, you will probably find people's personal statements. But I will tell you this, I mentor lots and lots of students all over the world. And whether you come to my school or not, I would be happy to look at your personal statement and give you comments.
Thank you so much.
So you can find me, and because I review them all the time, when you apply, I will be the person to make the decision about admissions and scholarships. When you come, I will be the academic advisor to sit down with you and decide which classes we want to take and all that. That's part of my job that I enjoy the most. And then also as a professor, I teach almost all of the international students. So it'd be great to be able to see you. This semester, I'm actually teaching a class I'll teach this afternoon here on real estate transactions. I have 9 students and we're going to have a lot of fun this afternoon. And it's a 4-week short course that I taught. And hopefully I'll get a chance to teach here again. It's the second time I've taught at your school. So, any other questions? All right. Well, I don't think there's anything else. Let me flip through this real fast. They prepare these things for me. And I think a lot of this we talked about. Oh, this is the last thing I was just going to tell you. Life is a series of tunnels and chambers. And when you're in a tunnel, like high school, you do your best. And then one day it's going to open up into a chamber and you're going to have more choices, more tunnels. And that's good. And a lot of times, people that are lawyers or law students, we get paralyzed, we get afraid. Do I make the right choice? Do I make the right choice? Because you're taught to analyze risk and to see things. Most of the time, it's not about making the right choice. Most of the time, it's about making the choice right. What I mean by that is, yes, do some analysis, figure out what my options are, and then just make that choice, give it 100%, don't look back, go down that tunnel and see where it leads. And even if it dead ends, it wasn't a mistake, it was just something else that you learned about yourself or the things that you're interested in. So this is an exciting time. My son and my daughter-in-law are graduates of the law school, and I actually got to be their dean of students. And he was vice president, and she was treasurer. And that year, I had really good eyes about all the students. I knew what was going on. She went to work for Pier 1 doing leasing work. My son's an energy lawyer. And her dream was always to work for international. And she's now working for the State Department. And they live in Frankfurt. And my son works remotely and does work for his firm and for the World Bank and for the Department of Commerce. She was in Kenya for 4 years, Ghana for 4 years. Now she's in Frankfurt. Who knows where she'll be after that. And my 2 grandsons, they don't call me granddad. They call me Babu. Because Babu is a Swahili word for grandfather, and their nanny told them that's what your Babu is coming. So now I'm Babu. The point of that is, I've got, ironically, my son who never wanted to move to Kuwait is now living overseas and having to teach his 2 boys that, after about 3 years, we're going to be going someplace other than Frankfurt. So, here's bad news to say. I'm happy to serve as a resource. We have a special relationship. And as you have questions about my school or even other schools, information from Fernanda, reach out to me and think of me as a mentor. And one of my mentors was a man named John Hill, who was the former Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court. He was an excellent litigator. And amazingly, he did that even though he had a speech impediment. You wouldn't think someone with a lisp could be a good litigator, but the juries would listen to him. He came into my office when I was a young lawyer one time. He said, "Martin, do you know the definition of a client?" And I said, "No, John." "Well, it's the first person through the door with a dollar bill and a problem, right? And since you don't know which side of the issue you're going to be on, you got to learn to be flexible." And it's true. All the cases that we study, lawyers are arguing, no, this is the law, this is the law, this is the facts, and they're representing people, right? And somebody walked through their door with a dollar bill and a problem. But the other piece of advice that he gave me that I never forgot was never forget an old friend and never be afraid to make a new friend. And so in my life, I've done that, and I'm very blessed to have friends from when I was a small child all the way to people that I meet tomorrow. And that's one of the really exciting things about the LLM program. It's meeting friends from all over the world, sharing those experiences, and in 3 years, SMU is going to celebrate its 100th year as a law school. And there's going to be a big party and everything like that. And I'm so excited because all these alumni from all over the world, we have over 2,500 alumni in 80 different countries. And they've been on Supreme Courts and heads of law firms and deans of law schools and just, amazing people. And all of you have the potential to do those same things. So who's to say? All right, I'll let you go now. Thank you. Fernanda, this is such a great time. Thank you for letting me talk to your students.
Thank you for being
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to the International Students Association. Just remember, I'm always there.